Okay, great. Great to see everyone here. And today is our last review on Dao De Jing. Dao De Jing. We are going to start from 55 to 81. And then the format is we ask volunteers to read chapter by chapter and then on the screen. And then I think if you the definition of God. Okay, so you can read from the website, and then whoever have my online version, and you are welcome. Can you please help me post on the chat so people can download? Okay, so this version, okay. I know some people probably already have the link for the version on this version, so you can post on the chat so other people can download. Oh, thank you, Kitty. Okay, so okay, let's start. Who would like to read the chapter 55? Okay, looks
I can read it.
Yes, please. Yeah, Mark. Mark?
I'm just getting it up on my.
All right.
Okay. Chapter 55. Possessing day. Those who profess the profundity of day are like newborn babies. Poisonous insects do not sting them. Ferocious beasts do not grab them. Birds of prey do not attack them. Their bones are weak, their tendons soft, but their grip is firm. Not yet knowing about sexual intercourse, but their little penises can still become erect. This is because they are in a state of optimal virility. They can cry all day, but never get hoarse. This is because they are in the state of optimal harmony. Knowing harmony is common. Knowing the common is enlightenment. Improving lives is auspicious. I don't know if you mean auspicious, maybe auspice.
I meant some good sign, good omen. Is that the right
Yes.
word? Do you have any suggestion?
Auspicious.
You think it's auspicious?
Yes.
That's a adjective, right?
Yes.
Using. So you think this way would be better?
Absolutely not. I think you have to.
Am I going to be using the bosom to drive key is strength. Things that grow robust will become old. They are without Tao. Without Tao, they come to an early end.
Thank you, Mark. You have any thought to share?
One of the things that really stands out here, Jason, is the physical side, the material side of the possession of De and Tao. We often think about it in purely spiritual terms, but here it's very much seems rooted in the physical and the material. I'll stop there.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, let's move on. 56. Anyone want to read this one? Okay, Joe.
Jason, are you able to make it just a little bit bigger on the screen? Oh, thank you. For these tired old eyes, you know.
I know. Thank you.
Chapter 56, The Valuable Tao. Those who know don't speak. Those who speak don't know. Those who know close their mouths, shut their door, blunt their sharpness, untie their tangles, harmonize their light, and are together with dust. This is called mystic, profound togetherness. Therefore, they cannot gain and become closer. They cannot gain and become distant. They cannot gain and become advantageous. They cannot gain and become harmful. They cannot gain and become valuable. They cannot gain and become base because they are already valuable to the world.
Thank you, Joe.
You're welcome.
Please have some comment.
Not really. I just read a lot of they cannot gain. So felt really negative, but that's probably what it says. So
Oh, you feel a little bit negative on that?
just had that feeling.
I would say, do you feel a little passive or discourage you to do things? Because you do things, you will get opposite situation. Okay.
It's almost like it's calling for inaction.
I think that's right. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. Okay.
Okay.
But I would like to think through that because I do try to very loyal to the text. If you see the Chinese, they all start with, or the first four characters are all the same, right? 不可得而, 不可得而, they all the same. They all the same. That's why I all translate as they cannot gain because, okay, some become, okay, gain and become closer. Okay, so that means you want to be closer, be more distance, be advantageous, be harmful, valuable based. It's not based on your action. Okay, or Donna, you want to read the next one or you have a comment on this one?
I have a question on this one.
Please.
So they cannot gain and become closer, etc. So is that like you're at a sweet spot where you are one with Tao, and if you change, or you're not going to gain anything by trying to be closer or more distant or have more advantage. You're at the sweet spot of Tao. Is that what that means?
I would not say what he meant, but I would say I will agree with you. Let's put it way. Yeah. Because this text is very open to your interpretation, and then my job will be try to be as close as possible to translate the original text.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for comment. Thank you for sharing your feeling. Let's move on. Okay. 57. Anyone want to read? Okay, Donna, please.
Governing a state. Uprightness is expected when governing a state. Unexpected stratagems are used in military operations. Non-interfering is the way to gain the world. How am I so sure about this? Because of this. The more prohibitions the world has, the more impoverished people become. The more advantageous tools the people have, the more confusions happen in the state. The more cunning and skillful the people become, the more oddities, unexpected things, are produced. The more legal orders are issued, the more bandits and thieves there are in the state. Therefore, the sage, he said, has said, I practice wu-wei, but the people are civilized all by themselves. I prefer tranquility, but the people are upright all by themselves. I practice non-interfering, but the people become rich all by themselves. I have no intention, but the people become naturally plain all by themselves.
Thank you, Donna. Please comment. Or you
Just
anything?
this,
Go ahead.
yeah, I mean, it goes just, I really can't cerebrally comment. I just get the reality of what he's saying. Non-interference, wu-wei, non-action, and then everything will naturally be well or balanced by itself.
Great. Thank you so much. Okay. Any other comment? So let's move on.
I would just mention on that I think, Jason, you mentioned before that you think some of this is directed at the king or the prince or the leader or the ruler.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like there are hints in 57 about governance and how to rule.
Yes, thank you for mentioning that. That's the way I read it, because I see each chapter, the audience could be different. And this one very obvious is talking to the ruler, or at least to any government officers, okay, about how to rule, okay, and non-interfering. So, Penny, you want to read chapter 8?
Yes, I'll read it.
Yeah, thank you.
Chapter 58, Government of Probing. If the government is silent, the people will be honest. If the government is probing, the people will feel lacking. Misfortune is what fortune leans on. Fortune is what misfortune hides under. Who knows which way, fortune or misfortune, it goes? There is no proper expectation, norm. What is expected, norm, may become what is unexpected, oddity. The good may become evil. People are perplexed for a long time. For this reason, the sage is squared, principled, yet not cutting, critical, irreproachable, yet not unforgiving, not hurting people, straightforward, yet not unbridled, bright, yet not blazing.
Thank you, Penny. Please comment. Oh.
Okay. Well, this follows, I think, a little bit on the previous chapter and about that the government can't openly interfere in people's lives to make them do a certain thing, because what they would do will cause the people to misbehave in a way, to not follow the natural order. And nobody knows exactly what's going to be the result of their actions. So the best is, like the sage, just to be principled and basically kind of humble, and not try to force other people to do things.
Thank you, Penny. This one, the translation I work is a little bit difficult. I try not to put too many parentheses in my translation, but this one sounds like I have to, because a lot of words have a double meaning in Chinese, and the author seems play the word like norm and oddity. Okay, so square and what's it? 正为其square but not cut it. Okay, but you don't see the opposite meaning on that, but Chinese character has that meaning. That's why the translation I have to put a parentheses on that. In most of the cases, I try not to, but this one, look guys, I don't have a better solution. Paul, please.
Yeah, I like that you did that, Jason, because building on what I think Penny said, that word oddity showed up in the previous verse. That the cunning and if you get more cunning and skillful, if the people get more cunning and skillful, then unexpected oddities will happen. But this is sort of makes that more clear that you might have really, it's not what we talked about in one thing, like it's not keep the people ignorant. It's that if you try to educate them, unexpected results might happen and good may become evil. So I think it's a good building. Like we're using those odd words and seeing the link between the two of them actually helps.
Thank you, Paul. Eric, please.
Hi.
That's it. Welcome. That's your first time. Thank you.
Yes, thanks. Yeah, first time. I think what I was thinking about this is it seems a lot of the chapters, including this one, talk about the nature of causality and how when you think that causality is kind of straightforward, that if you do something, let's say like you try to institute laws, then people will become more well controlled. And I don't think it's necessarily saying that you shouldn't do anything, but it feels like it's using very extreme examples to illustrate the point that when you try to control very hard, it actually contains within the seeds of that action some of its own opposite. Kind of like the yin yang symbol, that the dark and the light each have a little bit of each other in it. So I don't think it's saying that you should be active, because if you take that to the extreme, then why do you even need a government? There's no reason to do anything if there's no action. But I think it's trying to make someone aware of how reality is a little bit paradoxical.
Thank you, Eric. Okay, very well said. Okay, and that's move on. Okay. Again, here we don't try to reach agreement, but basically we share how we think, and I think that's the purpose of the section. 59. Seems we change subject. It's not talking politics anymore. Well, you can say that's a politics, but depends on how you read it. So probably I just read it, okay? Governing people and serving heaven is nothing other than preserving. Only preserving can be called early preparation. Early preparation is called double accumulating de. Double accumulating de leads to invincibility. Invincibility leads to inestimability. Inestimability leads to capability of having or ruling a state. Having or ruling, okay, having the mother of a state leads to long living of a state. This is the Tao of deep root, firm foundation, and long living government for a long time. So I read this one as both basically the target is for the ruler, but also mix with personal and political together. Basics, it tells you. I think what I learned here is we constantly talk about wu-wei, non-action, but it's not really doing nothing. Basically, the key word to me is preservation and early preparation. So you have to think ahead. So you prepare and then and prepare and preserve. Okay, you don't do all out at the beginning. So in this way, you will become invincibility, and then you will have more power. And in this way, and the author called this one as ruling, okay, or having the 国之母. It's difficult to translate, but basically it's talking about you own the root. That's the root of the state. So you can live for long living. Here, long living, I put the parentheses here because the author doesn't say what kind of long living. So since I read this one as a political, so I will consider it's talking about long living of a state. So that's what I get from this chapter. Is any other comment? Eric, please.
Yeah, I had another thought. It
Please.
seems like what it's saying as far as I guess what to do in trying to preserve a state. It seems like it's saying that you should do something, but it's like what is the nature of the preparation? And I think just based on what we've read so far, it's like you're not trying to work really hard, but you're trying to prepare to move in alignment with like nature, so to speak, like the way things naturally happen, and to make plans that take into account how nature behaves, or at least that's what it seems to be saying. Because if you're very adaptable and you have plans that adapt to how things work, then it's kind of hard to beat you, as opposed to being like rigid.
Thank you, Eric. Any other comment before we move to 60? This is why I call it the Ronald Reagan's section. Okay, and I put a note, 1988, Ronald Reagan's State of Union. Ronald Reagan called the first line. Okay, okay. Since I'm talking, then I probably just read this. Govern a large nation as you will cook a small fish. And in Ronald Reagan's speech, he add, don't overdo it. Okay, but it's not there. Okay, so govern a large nation as you will cook a small fish. When Tao prevail over the world, ghosts lose their spiritual powers. Not only do ghosts lose their spiritual powers, but even spirits cannot harm people. Not only can spirits not harm people, even the sage do not harm people. Because neither means ghosts and ghosts nor sages, the returns to its world. So I think this one basically talking about how to govern, and the text said govern a large nation as you will cook a small fish, no more. And Ronald Reagan's speech add on, don't overdo it. So that will become an open interpretation. You can say you should be careful and don't disturb. Okay, whatever you think, but that's the text seems to talk about. And here also talk about sage. Taoist sage is very different than Confucius sage, right? Confucius sage seems to want to do a lot of good things to improve the state, to help the people. But the Taoist sage seems the requirement is do no harm, okay? Hands off. That's what I read from this text. So any comment? Eric, please.
I don't have an answer for this one. I think I find it confusing because I don't know what ghosts mean.
Okay.
And I also think this analogy of cooking a small fish, I guess if you didn't agree with it already, I would demand an explanation for why they claim that it should be like this, rather than, I don't know, a different way of cooking it. Why can't you cook it well done?
Yeah, I agree with you. I have a certain position. Actually, I personally I also question this one, right? Is that this metaphor correct? Why not just govern a large state as you would do barbecue, right? So okay, but I think that's the way the Dao De Jing is phrased. Okay, so you can say, oh, the metaphor is wrong. You should do say govern a large nation as you would do barbecue, and then that's a totally different story. But yeah, I think your question is legitimate, and try to answer your question. Ghost, Chinese 鬼, okay. I believe the text, Taoism text, especially Dao De Jing, is happened on the state of Chu. Okay, during that time, it's on the southern part, and I believe during that time, the religion could be shamanism, this kind of thing. So they probably believe they have the ghost. If the people die, they have the ghost, and everything, tree, mountain, have the spirit. Okay, and Chinese call Shen, and some translation will translate as gods, but I translate as a spiritual power. So that's the common situation happened, and then that's why, and then ghost and spiritual power, we don't know they are good or evil, because sometimes hurting people, sometimes helping people, and that's why this text put this one and then put the sage together. I think that's the answer I have, if you want to say that's your question.
So, sorry, just to follow up. So does that mean you think that the author believes that ghosts exist, or do they think that ghosts means like having superstitions and
Okay, I
belief?
will say the author believe the ghost and the spiritual power exist, and then if you don't do it too much, for example, you try too hard to do something, they are not going to bother you. Okay, so the same as a sage. Okay, will not bother you. I think that's the lesson they try to say.
Okay, thanks.
We have the Nick and the Yulia. Okay, then I have to move on. So go ahead. And Nick,
Yeah,
please.
thanks. I know. I mean, this is sort of the quick read to review instead of debating on the meanings. But nevertheless, I find Eric's question interesting. So I just want to put a comment there. I think the underlying assumption for the first statement is that nature has the inherent tendency to converge, to stabilize instead of to diffuse, right? So if you have a different assumption that the nature of the state affairs has the inherent tendency to become even more chaotic, then obviously the proper measure will be different. But if you assume that the state of nature has a natural tendency to stabilize to a steady state, then the advice to the people in power would be, naturally, don't mess up with that process. Don't do much. Just let the nature take its own course. And this reminds me of a Satori movie. I forgot the name, where a gardener was mistaken to be a very important person and gave advice to the president. The guy clearly was not able to, but he started talking how to grow, the flowers.
Thank you, Nick. Yulia.
So that's the kind of the underlining assumption that underpins the first sentence.
All right, thank you, Nick. We have Yulia, please.
Hi, I just want to make sure that so the difference between ghosts and spirits is that spirits are more like gods and ghosts are dead people?
Excuse me, you mean ghost and spiritual?
Yeah, because it's different, right? Not only do ghosts lose their power, but spirits too. So ghosts and spirits are different. So
Yeah.
spirits are more like gods and ghosts are dead people.
I don't know. Let's put it this way. Okay. Sorry,
Okay.
I go back to the text. 其鬼不是. Okay. So here, here is talking about, I don't know. Okay. The religion part. Okay. The ghost means, okay. That means rephrasing. Probably they say the ghost. And where is the ghost coming from? I don't know. Probably from the dead people. And here you talk about the ghosts were lost. 记得其鬼是其鬼不神. Okay, the ghosts were lost its or their spiritual power. Okay, and then since the ghosts lost their spiritual power, the spiritual will not hurt people. Does the spiritual is from the ghost or different thing? I don't know. Okay, but the text seems talking about same thing. I don't see the text is very clear.
I've heard there's a new nigga going around trying to take over my fucking land. Hey.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Okay, Julia, I hope I answer your question, but
Yes, thank you.
yeah, but anyway, a lot of things are not very clear, and the same as I just try to be as clear as possible. And I think the situation is, I think we are doing very good. The purpose here, I think it's the way to read, at least I believe the way to read Dao De Jing is read it and think about it. And then you may have a different answer every time you read it. Among you are here, right? So
I am here. Give me just a second. I'll be settled in and able to get on camera. Hello,
okay.
everyone. Sorry I'm late.
Let's go to 61. Penny, please.
Okay, chapter 61, staying low. A large state should be at the lower position, like river delta, on which the world converges. It is like the female organ of the world. The female commonly overcomes the male with stillness. By stillness, they stay low. Therefore, a large nation can stay low to small nations to gain something from the small nations. A small nation can stay low to the large nations to gain something from the large nations. That is, either staying low in order to gain something or staying low but gaining something. The large nation only wants to provide and care for people. The small nation only wants to join and serve people. In this way, both the large and small nations can get what they want. It is better for the larger ones to stay low. To me, this seems like it's when it's talking about but different, the way countries handle their affairs, that it's better to stay focused internally and not try to be dominant or aggressive towards other countries. And if a large state focuses on itself, it can do things very well. So smaller nations are going to want to join with it. And in the same way, if the smaller nation is not aggressive or dominant toward the larger nation, then it will be able to unite with it, and there will be mutual benefit for both.
Thank you, Penny. This is another political philosophy. Okay. Joe, please.
I have a question. Could this be applicable if you wanted to stretch it to an individual and their relationships to others? Or is that too much of a stretch?
I don't think so. I think so you can stretch it as much as you want.
Yeah, I think it's perfectly reasonable to actually see this as advice for any sort of intercourse where you want to be in a position of power. You want to achieve it not by dominance, but by enticement.
Eric, please.
I think I read the word "stay low" as meaning to humble oneself or to be on to take a lower position.
Mhm.
That part made sense to me, but the top section, which seems to be talking uh, almost about sex, I found that kind of confusing. What does it mean to overcome the male with stillness, and why is the female still? I don't understand.
I just try to translate as honest as possible. Okay, if you read the Chinese, okay. Then go
Yeah,
ahead.
these
Come
are
on.
these are operating in stereotypes, but the stereotypical yin would be more feminine, quieter, more still. And so this, much like other advice that is riddled throughout the Tao Te Ching, is advising using yin as your stratagem for obtaining real power, real enduring power, and not just the fleeting perception of temporary power.
Okay,
Thank you.
so you're saying like at a figurative level, not necessarily like mechanically, you somehow overcome by being still.
Well, let's put it this way. Yeah, you can read as metaphysically yin and yang, but the text here, they use the word pin and mu, okay? That original meaning means animal female and animal male. So that's why I have to translate as kind of like a sexual intercourse kind of thing. Okay, and really up to you to read it, because if the text use male 男女 male and the female, I will translate the man and the woman. If the text use yin and the yang, I will translate as the yin and the yang. Okay, that's metaphysical level. Or I translate as the human level, or translate as the animal behavior level. And here, the word they use is animal level. Okay, not human, not metaphysical. That's the reason I translate it this way.
Okay.
And you can interpret it any way you prefer. Nick, please.
Yeah, just quickly comment on the question about this yin and yang. I think this passage and maybe the whole Dao De Jing, as Amang said, focus a bit more on the yin, the passivity side of the thing. But I just want to put in the thought that the Chinese thoughts in general, originating from the Zhou Yi, the Book of Change, actually emphasize both sides. The initiating part, which emphasize the positivity, initiative, versus the passive side, the receiving side. And yeah, but this paragraph under the Dao De Jing overall seems to highlight, you know, how to play the optimal followership strategy. Right? So in the game theory, you have optimal leadership strategy, optimal followership strategy. But I think the comprehensive, the more holistic Chinese thought emphasize these two sides as a part of a whole, rather than one part being better than the other part.
Yeah, thank you, Nick. Yeah, we are read. That's why we are reading Dao De Jing as part of the entire philosophy. And the next week we will have the opportunity to read Confucius Analect. And I hope you join next week, so you will see how Confucius, okay, which is almost contemporary with Laozi, okay, and how does Confucius see everything politically, morally, how to behave? That's a totally different view on that. So just remember, it's not just only one view, there are many, many different views. Okay, so let's move on. We have discussed enough. Then let's go to, so far every section we read is about politics. Okay, let's go to 62. Anyone want to read?
If there's no hands, I will make up for my absence by going ahead and taking this one. 62. The sanctuary Dao. Dao is the sanctuary of all things. It is a jewel for good people. It is a refuge for bad people. Moral words can gain respect. Moral deeds can win admiration. But why are bad people abandoned? The positions of emperor and 3 chief ministers are created for this reason. Instead of practicing elaborate rituals by using discs of jade or carts with 4 horses, they, the emperor and chief ministers, would do better just resting and advocating this Tao. Why was this Tao valued in ancient times? Is it not because it gives what you have asked for and forgives what you have wronged? So it is valued by the world. This is another passage that speaks to the equanimity of the Tao, and that the Tao doesn't make these sort of moral judgments against good and bad people. It gives without regard for that. Lao Tzu then launches into almost a quasi-ancient civics lesson about the emperor and 3 chief ministers and what they're doing currently, practicing elaborate rituals, using finery and the latest, greatest carts and horses, which we think carts and horses, and we kind of give it, that would be the equivalent of rolling out, the tanks down Main Street to show off your prowess. And he's saying they do better just giving up the pomp and circumstance and advocating for this equitable giving that exists in the world. All people need to do is recognize and embrace it. And this is a conundrum for many people who encounter Taoism, because they like to look at a symbol like yin yang and translate light, dark, male, male, good, bad. That's always where I stop people. Good, bad is a moral judgment. The others are relative judgments. As I've said once before, male is yang, female is yin. I am therefore yang, but you put me in a room with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I promise you, I am the yin in that room. They're always relativistic, but moralistic they are not. The idea of good or bad or evil and benevolence, those have no place in the Tao. Those are the trappings of human beings. Those are the pump and circumstance of culture. And we would do better, his advice, to abandon that and really focus on how does this beneficent force give wholly to all beings, regardless of their station. It's a little bit of a difficult one to wrestle with, but I do think it's incredibly valuable, because it kind of wrong foots the reader from, okay, I think I've got, wait, what? This is one of those chapters that takes you from, I think I've got it, to a lot of times reading it and saying, wait, what?
Thank you, Amam. Should we move on? Okay. 63. Should we? Anyone want to read? Donna, please.
Okay, it took me a while. Without difficulties. Act by non-action, wu-wei. Interfere by non-interference, and taste the tasteless. Do what is large when it is small. Address many things when they are few. Settle complaints with the. Plan difficult things when they are still easy. Do great things when they are still small. Difficult things in the world surely begin with ease. Great things in the world surely begin with small. Therefore, the sages never aim to do any great things, but they can achieve great things. Those who promise lightly must not be trustworthy. Those who treat things easily must face difficulties. For this reason, sages treat things as if they are difficult, therefore they never have difficulties.
Thank you, Donna. You want to have some comment, please?
I have to think about this. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone have any comment? I like the first verse, okay? Act non-action, interfere by non-interference, taste the tasteless. Okay, so you act but doesn't look like you are acting. You interfere by not interfering. I like my example is taste the tasteless. Is eating Japanese food, sashimi, right? The raw fish, no taste, but it's delicate. So let's put it this way. Eric, please.
To my reading, it seems almost like a small contradiction between the first and the second parts, because the first part talks about non-interfering and non-action, but then in the second sentence and then in the second paragraph it talks about doing things. So to me, it can't be it's saying do nothing. It almost seems to draw a distinction between action that is a kind of interference, like a very drastic thing that tries to change the natural course of things, versus something that will address things when they're before they become larger, and like it's like, I guess, a snowball rolling down the hill. You just nudge it a little bit and then it rolls down the hill and becomes very big without you needing to push it all the way.
Thank you. Yulia, please.
Yeah, thought that was a good point. The first line of act by non-action, interfere by non-interference reminds me of what you were talking about last time, Jason, where when your children are fighting, you do not interfere. And the thing is that, yes, of course, someone said the non-action is itself an act, right?
Yeah.
So by not getting involved, you are having an effect on them, right? It's not like you're just like not there or something. No, you're there, and your non-action is actually a form of interference.
That's my interpretation, because I do practice. I always say personally, I practice wu-wei a lot. So it doesn't mean I do nothing. I don't know anything. I know, but knowing doesn't lead me to interfere or action, because I choose non-action consciously. Okay, that's
And I
my.
think, yeah, they are probably affected by that, right? Maybe they stop fighting because you don't do anything. If you did something, they would keep fighting. Like, it has an effect.
Yeah, that's right. I don't know, but another thing, I don't believe no harm. That's a little bit personal. I do believe a little bit the damage is fine. Okay, it's okay. That's my personality. I don't see. I don't pursue perfection. Okay, so let's put it this way. I do see perfection always cause more problem. Okay. So that's just my idea. Okay. Nick, please.
Yeah, just want to share a thought that wu-wei to me does not mean don't do anything. It means to do the right thing. A quick story. Quick story from about the same time as Laozi. There was a doctor who was regarded as a really, really great doctor. But then he said, no, I'm not that great because my brother, my elder brother, is even better because my elder brother can cure late stage cancer, something like that. You know, the guy was that good. But I myself am not able to do that because what I do is really to diagnose the disease a few years ahead and then tell the patients to avoid developing the disease into the late stage. That's what I do. But obviously, the younger brother, you know, even today is considered the greater of the two. That's a kind of way I think the Tao Te Ching is trying to expose rather than doing nothing.
At this point, I will agree with you. So I remember when we read Art of War, right? My takeout from Art of War is you are a great general. You fight 100 wars and you win 100 wars. Okay, 100 battles. Does that mean you are good? The good one is you never go into the battlefield. Okay, so because you already prevent the cancer, so you don't have to cure it. So people don't see you are a good doctor, but they see a lot of people see the doctor can cure cancer as a good doctor. Okay, let's move on. 64, a little bit long.
Anyone want to tackle the journey of 1,000 miles passage?
Okay, let me read this one because I love this one, and personally I probably practice this one a lot. Okay, it is easy to maintain when it is still stable. It is easy to plan when it is still has no omen. It is easy to break when it is still brittle. It is easy to scatter when it is still tiny. Start to act when it has not yet begun. Start to fix when it has not yet become chaotic. A giant tree of 4-span girls grow from a tiny sprout. A tall terrace of 9 stories is built from a shower of dirt. A long journey of 1,000 miles begins from a single footstep. Those who act forcefully will fail. Those who hold tightly will lose. For this reason, the sage acts by wu-wei, so he never fails. He doesn't hold tightly, so he never loses. People, when handling a affair, often fail at the point of nearing completion. They shall be as prudent as the end, as the beginning, so they have no failures. For this reason, the sage wants what is not wanted, so he never values real goods. He learns what is not learned, so he can restore what people have missed. To assist all things in their own ways, he dared not to act. So to me, the key part is in the middle part. Okay, so talking about a journey of 1,000 miles begin from a single footstep. Everything starts from a small things, and I believe Confucius will say you be persistent and keep working on that. But Taoism will say start it early. Okay, and then That's it. Okay, just start early, then you will go miles. Just like when Aman and I start to translate, we just do it. Okay, we don't have the master plan what we are going to do. We just say, let's do it. So we walk it, and I think so, how many years? 3 years. Okay, and then 3 years, right? 3-4 years, and that's our second time translate. And I think Aman also feel the same way. We do improve a lot, and then we make a lot of progress. Okay, so. Yeah, if we knew we are going to do so much work, we may not start. So
that is absolutely true. But I'm still grateful to have been brought into the process. I want to just say a word about wu-wei, because I do see a lot of speculation. I want to give a concrete example. Absolutely everyone will get wetting the bed. None of us want to do it. But how do you solve that? Well, you go pee before bed. But what if you don't have to? Well, you can't make yourself. Well, that will probably mean you won't need to when you are sleeping. But the first thing you do when you get up, your body has told you, now it's time. Oh, okay. That's the beginning. And I should be as careful at the end as I am at the beginning. That is the last piece of advice here. I should be as thoughtful in how I go about addressing this at the end when I'm saying good night to my day, as I am at the beginning when I get up and I must do this because it is an effortless action. It is the natural way my body wants to behave. So maybe I stop drinking at a certain point in the night, but I make sure I've drank enough of my water so that come bedtime, I feel like I naturally can enough so that I can go pee one last time before I go to bed to prevent that tiny tree, that tiny seedling sprout from blooming into a nocturnal accident. This is also wu-wei, and it's wu-wei that we all understand. Doing something effortlessly, something that we simply have to do and naturally do, but being thoughtful enough about the thing that we're doing so that we're not just doing it at the inconvenient point in our life. We can actually orchestrate ourselves in a way that small steps, tiny things like, oh yeah, I make sure I finish my 40 ounces of water by 6 p.m. That way, come 8 p.m., 8:30, 9, I'm ready to wu-wei one last time before bed. One more way to think about wu-wei without putting it in lofty terms, but very concrete terms we can all probably appreciate.
Thank you, Amam. Okay, 65. Anyone want to read?
Should I start calling on people again? Oh.
Okay, Penny, thank you.
Okay, mystical De. In ancient times, those who were good at Tao didn't try to make the people enlightened. They tried to keep them ignorant, plain simple. Having many knowledgeable people makes a state difficult to govern. Therefore, the ruler who governs the state with knowledge is like the thief of the state. The ruler who governs the state without knowledge is a blessing of the state. To know those two is to also know the criterion of ruling. Knowing this criterion as common, it is called mystical De. Mystical De is deep and far-reaching. It returns with things and reaches its great natural course.
Thank you, Penny. Comment, please.
I mean, it just seems like here they're saying that you should govern, you know, try to let nature take its course and let things happen naturally. if you try to apply too much knowledge and thinking you know what's going to happen and trying to push things in different direction, it's not going to be successful.
Thank you, Penny. Okay, so when I ask for comment, remember, no comment also a comment because it's wu-wei. So don't feel pressure on that. So thank you anyway. Just like a lot of politicians, right? People ask, how do you think about it? They say no comment. So that's the comment. Also say that means something on that. 66, please. Anyone want to read? But no reading doesn't mean you read. So you still have to read. Joe, please.
Thanks. Now I've got a trump card. I can play the wu-wei card at the end of this. So, okay. Chapter 66, River Sea. The river sea is the king of all basins because it is good at staying low. Therefore, it is the king of all basins. For this reason, when the sage intends to reign over the people, he would speak humbly. When he intends to lead the people, he stays behind them. Hence, the sage is positioned above the people, but people don't feel his weight. He stays in front of the people, but people are not troubled. Hence, the world gladly esteems him and never resents him. Because he doesn't vie, the world cannot vie against him. So
Joe, you have a comment, please?
best I can come up with is humility, take the lower position, but I contend with that sometimes because that's not always possible. So I guess I'll enact wu-wei and defer to Aman to help explain this.
Traffic happens because people hit their brakes. Causes the brake light, the person behind them has to brake, the person behind that, person behind that. If the person somewhere in that lineup could follow far enough back and be patient enough to be slow enough, they are the one who doesn't have to hit their brake. They are allowing traffic to flow. What causes it to come to a deadlock is everyone racing to get to as far front as they can. This is taking the low position, not necessarily at the very back of the line, though you'll probably have people keep passing you because they too have to be first and you have to keep falling back. But that slower, steadier progress is beneficial to you and beneficial to all the traffic that is behind you. Every one of those people racing forward will be the car wreck you're going to see just a few miles further up on the highway.
Eric, please.
I read this passage as kind of being about two things. The river sea seems like it's almost like a physical thing because it's so low, all the water flows to it, which makes it, quote, the king. And then the rest of it seems to be almost like what's it, Newton's third law? For every action, there's an opposite equal reaction. So instead of trying to impose strength on people, which would cause them to resist and fight back, he just uses a light touch so that he can influence, but without people feeling that he's controlling them, which would cause them to try to take back their own their free will.
Thank you, Eric. So do you mind read 67, Eric?
Yeah, okay. Everyone in the world says my teaching of Tao is great. It doesn't seem to resemble anything. It is only because of its greatness that it doesn't resemble anything. If it had resembled anything long ago, it would have been small. I have 3 treasures to hold and keep. The first is called compassion. The second is called preservation. The third is called daring not to be first in the world. To be compassionate is to be brave. To preserve is to spread out. To dare not to be first in the world, so one can become the leader. Now, if one is brave without compassion, spread out without preserving, and strives to be first without staying behind, he will be near death. By using compassion to fight, one wins. To defend using compassion, one holds strongly. Heaven will save him and use like compassion to guard him.
Thank you, Eric.
Seemed kind of spiritual. The first part was like a riddle. I didn't understand at all, but the second two parts seem pretty straightforward.
Okay, thank you. We are not going to explain in the detail, but if you think it's a spiritual or mystical, I think that's fine. I think we should move on. Okay, since the purpose is go through and get the idea. Okay, 68 is a short one.
I can tackle this for the sake of brevity.
Okay, go ahead.
Good officers don't use force. Good fighters don't get angry. Good winners don't engage. Good employers stay in the low position. This is the duh of not vying. This is the duh of using people. This is the ultimate ancient way of matching heaven.
You have a comment?
Wu-wei.
Okay, no comment. I think this one is obvious, so we probably can move on. '69. Look, I think when we read this one, we notice from 69, 68, 69, 70. Well, there's a lot kind of related to the military thing. So this is the one, and this one is obvious related to the battlefield, talking about military operation. So I probably read this one. The maxim of military operation is I dare not act as a host, but prefer to act as a guest. I dare not to advance an inch, but prepare to retreat a foot. This is called marching without formation, taking without using arm, fighting without facing enemies, and arming without holding weapon. There is no disaster greater than taking the enemy lightly. Taking the enemy lightly will cause the loss of my teaching on three treasures related to the previous paragraph. Therefore, when two evenly matched armies meet, the army that mourns shall win. Okay, so I think this one is related to the battlefield. I think it's the same flavor. You fighting, you marching without formation, fighting without facing enemy. Okay, in a way, I think it's similar to Art of War. We'll talk about if you win 100 battles, doesn't mean you are great. The best way is you win without fighting. Okay, that's the essence they try to talk. Okay, so let's move on. 70. Anyone?
Jason?
Yes, please.
Can I ask about the last one? The idea of winning by not fighting.
Okay.
Isn't that substantially in harmony with the Sun Tzu, The Art of War?
I would say probably the same idea, right? Same idea. I definitely don't want to see it as a philosophy. You put Taoism and the Sun Tzu's idea together as they are talking about same thing. But at this moment, at this point, they all talk about the same thing, right? The high, just like Nick's example, right? A good doctor cure a lot of cancer, or another doctor, they identify the early sign of cancer, okay, and avoid it, Okay, which one is better? Okay, I think that's the situation.
I would just add to that this kind of takes the initial idea of the art of war, but it really centers it and makes it the whole idea that this is as good as it gets. Sun Tzu goes on to tell you, but if you gotta, here's everything else. This says, no, if you're good, this is what the outcome or what should be the case. No, no backup plan or plan B need be in place.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on. 70. Anyone want to read this one?
I can read it.
Okay, Mark, thank you.
My words are easy to understand and easy to practice, but people throughout the world cannot understand them, nor put them into practice. Words have origins. Works serve a purpose. Only those who don't know them, words and works, don't understand my teaching. People don't seem to know what I alone teach, words and works. The people who know me are few, so the people who follow me are valuable. For this reason, a sage wears plain clothes outside, but holds jade inside.
Thank you, Mark. Please comment.
I think what still impresses me about this is that people throughout the world I think this translation is a little different from the last one. Last time we looked at it, is that possible? Is this the chapter that says many people know me but are not able to act according to Tao?
That's a different chapter.
Okay, so that's the one that this is bringing to
yeah,
mind.
So yeah, you are right. That's a different chapter. We didn't change. Okay, so.
Margie asked a question in the chat. The meaning of holding jade, that actually indicates possessing something precious. And so the title of this chapter, Holding Jade, or In Possession of Something Precious, is what he's elaborating on, his teachings. They're precious. And they're real easy to understand. But people everywhere don't seem to understand and don't practice what he says. He's carrying something that is incredibly precious around that people just look at and go, eh.
Yeah, another way to read it, I will see as the really smart people don't show off his or her smartness, right? Don't always jump out to answer the question. You will wait, okay? So that's another way to look at it.
Those who speak don't know.
I would expect some people know speak, so that'll be better. 71, very short. Anyone want to read?
Oh, I can start calling on people.
You want to call on people?
Why not? See if Jenny's there. Jenny, I see you at the back of the line. Are you able to read? She may have stepped away, so
yes,
I'll go ahead.
Yes. Oh. I muted myself. Thank you. I would love to. Okay. Knowing, aware, what is not known is supreme. Not knowing, unaware, what is known is flawed. If and only if one acknowledges one's flaws as flaws, can he be flawless? The sage is flawless, for he acknowledges his flaws as flaws. Therefore, he is flawless. Lovely.
Thank you, Ginny. Please comment.
like what was written earlier. Yeah, he carries jade inside. All these are jades, precious phrases, precious sentences. That's what I call it.
Right. Thank you, Ginny.
I think it sounds very close to it's a Socratic notion of
Oh, okay.
knowledge, right? Because
thank you. Yeah.
Socrates
Okay.
said he's the wisest man because he acknowledges that he does not know anything.
Yeah, he's perfect because he know his flaws. So he
Right.
is flawless. Something like, yeah, thank you for mentioning that.
Oh, Jason, I missed a question that was dropped into the chat about how can people practice what that from the previous chapter? How can everyone, it's easy to understand, it's easy to practice, but people don't understand and don't practice. And the question was from Susan, how can people practice? My answer was really glib in the chat that sensitivity to the world around you is really what's a big key component to practicing it. But here is the answer to that in flawlessness, by being flawed and knowing your flaws so that you become flawless by acknowledging the flaws that are your flaws. This is a paradox because it feels really difficult to wrap one's head around. Wait a second, how am I perfect when my actions are imperfect or my execution is imperfect? Well, it's probably imperfect because you're trying to make something happen that isn't the right time, isn't the right place, isn't in the right ecosystem of opportunity for it to happen. And that's that sensitivity that I was talking about, knowing, okay, that's the way the wind is blowing, and now's the time for me to make the toss that way, because it'll go that way, as opposed to trying to fight upstream. I wanted to tie these two together with that question.
It sounds like you learn from your mistakes, but only if you are aware of your mistakes.
Yeah, there's a wonderful Chinese medical axiom: no disease, long life, no disease, no life. And the idea is, if you're nitpicking at the imbalances in you from the go, you're going to sustain. If you're just fine, I don't need to go get my cholesterol checked or my blood pressure, I feel great. You're probably 1 foot in the grave already and just don't realize it.
And also, my thinking is that introspection is a good thing. And, looking into yourself and seeing who you are and acknowledging the failings or weaknesses of yourself, that is always a good thing, I think, so that you can improve. And that's what I see as well.
So, Jason, I'm thinking we've got 35 minutes and 10 more chapters. I'm going to give everyone the out of being willing to read unless I see your hand up immediately. And unless there's a pressing comment, we can get through all the rest of these tonight. Any objections?
Nope. That's
all right. So
we are going to do Confucius Analytics next week. So
that is why I did that's why I did the editing on the translation this week. So 72. Hands? No. Fearing the awe. If people fear not the awe-inspiring majesty, then a great awful event may occur. Don't limit people's residence. Don't detest their livelihoods. If and only if you don't detest them, will you not be detested? Therefore, the sage is self-knowing and not self-flaunting. He is self-caring, but not self-aggrandizing. Indeed, he prefers the former, self-knowing, self-caring, to the latter, self-flaunting, self-aggrandizing. There's your introspection. Comments? Nope. 73, Heaven's Net.
Okay, go.
Volunteer. Going once, going twice. Those who have courage to act will be killed. Those who have courage not to act will live. These two types of daring can be beneficial or harmful. Who knows the reason that one's detested by heaven? For this reason, even the sage treats it as a difficulty. The Tao of heaven is, without vying, yet to be good at winning, without speaking, yet to be good at responding, without being called, yet it comes spontaneously, with calm, yet to be good at planning. Heaven's net is vast. It's sparse meshed, but nothing can slip through it.
Any comment?
Yeah, the enigma between what courage is. Sometimes you must know how to act, and sometimes you must know how not to act. And so there's a kind of maybe a balance or a kind of paradox that you have to understand in order to stay alive. Because you could be either rash or a coward.
Thank you, James. Great.
The executioner. 74. Anyone want to shout off with his head?
This one is a difficult one to okay.
Translate and
thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Did you call on me?
You raise your hand.
Yeah, okay. I thought he said and, that's why I was confused. The executioner. If people do not fear death, how can they be threatened with the punishment of death? If people are made to constantly fear death and they still act oddly, I can arrest and kill them. Who dares? The executioner is usually in charge of killing. Those who kill for the executioner are like whittlers cutting for the master carpenter. Whittlers who cut for the master carpenter rarely do not hurt their own hands.
You have any comment?
No comment.
Okay, thank you.
I have one comment. I watched the 1970s version of Lone Wolf and Cub recently, and the character of Lone Wolf was the official court executioner. That was his job, and it was a honored position. It was kind of interesting to see that position enacted in a period Japanese piece. But moving on, 75. Value living. Who here values their life enough to read? Going once, going twice. Okay. The people's starvation is caused by the excessive taxation of the ruler, so they are starving. The people's unruliness is caused by the interference of their ruler, so they're unruly. The people's disregard for death is caused by the obsession for excessive living from their ruler, so they disregard death. Only those who don't work for their own living are more virtuous than those who value their lives. Are those who care not about people's lives better than those who value their lives? Alternatively, those who don't only work for their own living are better than those who overvalue their lives. Comments?
I think you should comment, Amma.
This is the classic case of self-fulfilling prophecy. I try to, manage the people, and the people are unmanageable. I try to get the kids to sit down and shut up, and what they want to do is just jump out of their chairs and run ragged. And I threaten them with their lives so many times that they just start going, huh, granddad's full of it. He's always threatening our lives. Nobody's died yet. They disregard their imminent demise at my hands. So is this a successful strategy? No. Everything in those first passages is about what isn't a successful strategy. So what is? Doing for other people more than you value your own life. Getting them involved in something that excites them more than my craving for peace and quiet. That would actually be the beneficial thing to do. And only a person who approaches it with their own agenda placed on the back burner is going to get the result they're after.
Thank you. Thank you, Amang. Move on, 76. Okay, let me read it. I like this one. Okay. When people are alive, their bodies are soft and tender. When they are dead, their bodies become hard and strong or unyielding. When all things, grass and wood, are alive, they are soft and delicate. When they are dead, they become withered and dry. Therefore, that which is hard and strong follows death. That which is soft and tender follows life. For the same reason, the strong army cannot win. The strong wood can be broken off. The large and the strong belong to the low position, the soft and the tender to the high position. Okay, so this one to me is very typical way of teaching in Taoism. First, they like use the nature phenomena and they say as a proof or as a lesson for your daily life. So you may argue that's wrong, okay, but let's assume that it is. Okay, they say the easy way to look at it is hard wood, when you bend it, you break it. But if the soft one, you bend it, you still preserve. So in this point of view, you say, oh yeah, the tender is better than the strong or the hard one. And you see the dead people, dead tree or hard, but the living people, living animal or living organism, they are soft and tender. That's the proof. So that's the typical way of Dao De Jing, or especially in the Laozi's teaching, is try to derive life lesson from the nature phenomena.
Yeah, I think for me, this one, I think has a reference to certain kinds of attitudes and certain, philosophies, ways of thinking. And some ways of thinking are soft and tender. And there are some other ways of thinking that's very hard and dogmatic and very, unyielding. And so that kind of egotistical attitude is what he's referring to as unyielding and strong and so forth, but they cannot win. They're hard and strong, but they follow death. And the living is soft and yielding and tender. And yeah, that's an interesting contrast. Yeah, it refers to a way of the Tao is living and soft and tender. So it's in contrast to what is not Tao, which is death. That maybe accepting death is also part of that way of tender, soft thinking. Yeah. Right,
Thank you, James. Move on. Oh, Paul, thank you for reading.
Sure. The Tao of Heaven, chapter 77, the Tao of Heaven. The Tao of Heaven is like drawing a bow, lowering that which is high, raising that which is low, decreasing what is excessive, filling what is deficient. The Tao of heaven decreases the excesses and fills the deficiency. The Tao of people is not the same. It decreases the deficiencies and supplies to the excesses. Who can have the excess to give to the world? Only those who have the Tao. Therefore, the sage acts without leading, achieves without taking the credit. He doesn't want to be seen as virtuous.
Thank you, Paul.
I have to comment on this because I just was speaking with my daughter and my granddaughter today, and somehow the subject of changing a tire came up, and my granddaughter said to my daughter, "Can you change a tire?" And she said, "Oh yeah, I've changed a lot of tires because I've had a lot of people around me who never knew how to do it." And I could not stop myself from saying, "Now tell her how you learned to change a tire." My daughter thought I had invented some very special punishment for her the day she called me with a flat, and I came out and instead of fixing it for her, made her learn to change a tire. That was a miserable afternoon for her, but she doesn't necessarily give me credit, but she has to recognize that that was when she learned, and she did not see me as worthy or virtuous for making her crack those lug nuts. Stomp on it, but it endures. So yeah, it's not always about being seen as benevolent. It's not always necessarily doing the easy or fastest thing. And sometimes it is going to be hard, but it gives where there is deficiency.
Thank you, Aman, for sharing.
Absolutely.
Paul, since you read it, do you want to comment?
I just sort of have a question. Usually the Tao is just thought of as the way, but you don't often, I don't think, in this book, encounter a way, the use of the word the Tao, but it's a way that doesn't work. The Tao of people. So I just wanted to point that out. And is that rather unique in this passage?
Well, that I will read this way. They talk about the good thing and the bad thing. So they assume people not following Tao. So, okay, you guys not doing that. That's why you decrease the deficiency and supply the excess. Okay, so he want the people to change instead of doing the Tao of people, but you should do the Tao of the heaven. That's why the title is the Tao of heaven.
Yeah, I notice you use a small t.
I'm not sure that's a mistake or intentionally. Among you have answered.
That was very intentional because the capital T Tao is talking about this grand concept, but that's not the only use of the word. The Tao is a way. Tao can be a way, and so the Tao of people is not the Tao, it's a specific Tao, just like there's a Tao of chopping onions, and there's a Tao of, entering and exiting an airplane. These are ways things are done, but they're not the grand way. They are just a way.
The way I treat the again, Chinese has no uppercase, lowercase, so it's difficult. So I will take this way, but I have to admit I'm not very consistent through all the translation. When I put the capital, the Tao is the end itself, and when I put the lowercase, Tao is the way. Okay, and which means is the means to the end. So, okay, so that's the difference. I try to do, but may not be very consistent. So
yeah, this is always a habit I developed to is that capital T is the Tao, lowercase t is a Tao.
Is there any way of thinking that they could overlap?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, certainly.
We will know that from next week. When we start to read the Confucius Analect. Confucius also talk about the Tao, and to that text Confucius, I will say Tao. Most of the time he's talking about the way, the lowercase Tao. Okay, but he also talk about the uppercase Tao. But it's difficult to just answer James your question. Do they have overlap? I don't know. It's intentionally overlap or mistakenly overlap. I don't know. It's a difficult question.
Yeah. Do you think Confucius might have put more emphasis on the lowercase Tao? Because
I think that's my reading. Okay. I think Confucius put a lowercase Tao. So to Confucius, okay, that's my understanding. For Taoist, right? Tao is the end, the highest one you want to achieve. But for Confucius, Ren, or you want to call it the benevolence or human heartedness, right? Ren is the highest goal you want to achieve. And then you have to through some Tao to achieve this highest moral standard. So that's what I read. Yeah. 78. We are almost done. Thank you. Everyone be cooperate. And I know a lot of people holding their tongue to anyone want to read?
Oh, please. If somebody wanted to jump ahead, go right ahead. Was that Quan? Okay. 78. The de of water. Nothing in the world is more tender nor soft than water, but nothing attacks what is hard and strong better than water does. There is nothing that can replace water. Tenderness overcomes strength. Softness can overcome hardness. Nobody in the world doesn't know this, yet nobody acts on this. Therefore, the sage said, those who receive the disgrace of the state can be the lord of the country, altars of earth and grain. Those who receive the misfortune of the state can be the kings of the world. These true words may sound paradoxical.
Your comment, Amam?
I think I've said a ton on this, but if anyone else has a comment, I'm sure I have a response.
Yeah, anyone have a comment other than Amam?
Can I say something?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah, that he's using the image of the water, as a metaphor for the Tao. It flows without, any particular direction, and it's free, it's soft, it's it just it flows, it goes where it goes, and that's how he's using the image of the water. But so whatever happens in the world is part of that flow, whether you are a disgrace to the state or a misfortune, you can be part of that flow, which is, it could be interpreted as the king of the world or the lord of the country. It's just part of the same flow.
Thank you, James. Okay, so we have Mark, another Mark, and Eric. Okay, Mark, please.
Yeah, where does the title of this chapter come from?
You mean the title of this chapter? The Day of Water.
Yeah, the Day of Water. Where does that? Yeah. That's not part of the original text, correct?
No, that's not the part. Okay, I have to admit this title is traditional. They put the title. Some title I disagree. Okay, but I just follow it. Okay. I didn't make the title, and I don't know who created the title, but traditionally, a lot of traditional text has no title. Okay, but some has a title, and I just follow it. That's your question?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and Eric, please.
The first two paragraphs makes me think of Bruce Lee. He had that famous speech that he said, "Be like water," and because water can flow or can crash.
Okay, thank you. That's all you want to comment? $79.
Only three more chances.
Yeah, you have 3 more chances. 4 more chances. Otherwise,
go ahead
you will
and
read
read
the
again.
Confucius in the deck. So,
I'll read again.
yes, thank you.
After harmonizing, settling a major complaint, there must be remaining complaints. How can this be good? Therefore, the sage holds the left creditor side of the contract, but doesn't demand payment. Those with the key contracts, those without the collect tax payments. The Tao of heaven is impartial. However, it is usually with good people.
You like to comment?
No, you guys explain to me what it says.
Okay. No comment, also a good comment. Thank you.
The left-hand side of the contract is the creditor. The right hand goes to the person who is in debt. It's always to be better to the one who is given than to be the one who owes. If you owe, you will be scrambling to pay that debt. If you've given, somebody may be out there scrambling. They may not be. I've lent my brother money many times and I've never seen a penny of it back, and I never expect to when I give it to him because I know my brother. And it's better that I hold that side of the ledger because he may be unreliable, but he's lovable and he means well, and I do love him. And so I keep that side of the contract, but I never go forcing a payment from him. I never collect, even when I am making less than him, which has happened many a time.
Thank you, Amam. To me, this one is talking about forgiving. Okay, so I think that's a very important virtue for Taoism. 80. Are we doing 80? Yeah, 80. 2 more opportunity to read.
I'm going to call on people because I only get 2 more chances at that. And there's a few of you I haven't heard from. So, Kitty, would you care to read?
All right. Let's see. In a small not migrating, chapter 80. In a small state with few people, let people have many tools, but they don't need to use them. Let people weigh death so they don't migrate to distant places. There are boats and carriages, but people don't ride on them. There are armors and weapons, but people don't display them. Let people revert to the ancient way of tying knots. Let them taste their food, appreciate their clothes, settle in their homes, enjoy their customs. The neighboring states look over each other. The crowing of roosters and the barking of dogs can be heard from each other. Throughout their lives, these neighboring people have no comings and goings with each other.
Thank you, Kitty. Do you want to comment?
No comment.
No comment. Okay, great. Looks like a lot of people want to practice wu-wei. So, okay, so let me comment on this one. I like this one because this one is representing Taoist, especially Dao De Jing's utopia. Okay, so even on chapter 60, 60 talking about how to govern a large state, but I believe their Taoist ideal state situation is small state with few people. Okay, so they kind of don't bother each other, but they look over each other. They can hear, they can see each other, but they don't bother to interfere with each other. So kind of back to the before civilization, this kind of society. Okay, so that's the, I think this chapter kind of depict the Taoist utopia. That's what I read. Any other comment?
Yeah, I have a comment.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I think this. Yeah, you're right. This is a kind of a utopian, because the people are living according to the Tao, and they don't need to use even the tools that are available there, because they have no need to have ambition to do much, because they're content, and they realize that death is always around them nearby. So I think that's what that line that says, let people wait death so they don't migrate to distant places. They don't need to have, they don't need to go anywhere else, because they realize that their lives are short and they need to live in contentment and enjoy their good food and basically being in the flow of identify with the Tao is being content. And I think that's what this one means.
Thank you, James. Mark, please.
Yeah, I'm wondering if anybody has any linguistic or historical insight into line 6 and the reference to the ancient way of tying knots. That's it. Thank you.
The question, from, if I'm hearing you right, was any insights into the ancient method of tying knots? And it's an excellent question. I can tell you that from what I know, and I am not a Chinese historiographer or history major by any means, but I studied quite a bit of it, is that the knot tying was a record keeping method. You would use knots to actually do accounting. So this is a returning to a state pre-literacy, but post-math efficiency. And so it is interesting to me. I'm glad you kind of zeroed in on that, because it's something about this chapter that stood out to me too. If Laozi is advocating a pre-literate society, he's not advocating for a pre-educated society. He does think that some method of accounting, of record keeping, of doing basic arithmetic is of imminent value. It's of such supreme value that he wouldn't abandon it in his utopia. And I find that very fascinating. That to Laozi, yeah, words, those could probably be foregone, but math, you got to keep that around. It's too important not to.
So one thing I like to comment, not on the tying knot. More important, I like to pay attention on this one, because they are not really anti-civilization. Okay, look at this way. They have many tools, but they don't use. People have boats and carry, but they don't ride on that. They even have armors and the weapons, but they don't display it. So in the situation is, they have things, okay? They are not like barbarian state. They have things, they have the means, but they no need to use it, okay? So I think that's the situation, like you are peaceful, let's use a country as an example. You are a peaceful country, you don't wage war to any other state, you don't fight, but doesn't mean you don't have a weapon. you still have a weapon to protect yourself potentially. So I think that's kind of important. I like to mention.
I did have. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was wondering if this might relate to the idea of gunpowder. It was, was used for firecrackers, but they never used it to make, weapons.
I don't know. That's another thing. Okay, that's 1,000 years later. So
yeah.
I did have a request private to me in chat for Quan, if you're there and would be interested in tackling chapter 81.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, you have been quiet for all day long, so that's the last one for you.
And Jason, if you have to leave right at time, I can stick around a little late. I got to make up for being late myself.
Okay, great.
Just make sure you make me a host so it doesn't all drop.
Quan,
take it away.
Yeah, so 81, if I remember, it was one that, okay, so not hoarding. Trustworthy words are not beautiful. Beautiful words are not trustworthy. Good people are not necessarily eloquent. Eloquent people are not necessarily good. The wise are not erudite, and the erudite are not wise. The sage doesn't hoard. The more he works for others, the more he possesses. The more he gives to others, the more he earns. The Tao of heaven is to benefit, not to harm. The Tao of the sage is to act for others, not to vie with them. So a very short comment is probably the most outstanding poem reconciling Taoism and Confucianism in a very refined way, because Taoists and Confucianists are certainly in agreement about the fact that the Tao of heaven is to benefit, not to harm. The Tao of the sage is to act for others, not to vie with them. So I stop here.
Thank you, Quan. And then we conclude 81, and thank you, everyone. We did a very good timing, and we exactly finished 81. And Quan, thank you, especially thank you. I know you like have a more detailed discussion and in-depth discussion, but unfortunately, these 2 weeks is not fit for your style. But next week we read Confucius Analect, and then we will back to chapter by chapter, and we'll read one by one, and we will have the more detailed discussion on Confucius Analect.
But on the contrary, it was an excellent practice for me to be in the eternal Tao.
Thank you.
And I
want
to thank you as well. And thank you for letting me come in so late.
Hey,
no,
I
Ginny,
came in
I
so
think
late. You had to.
we like to have you, and I really appreciate your reading. And I know you are not here all the time, but again, a lot of time I really appreciate the first time reading reaction. I think that's also very important. Two things. One is that's an unpolished response, and that's very good. Second, that's a good way to test my or Among and my translation, because without any further experience of the text and what kind of reaction you have, it's very important to me. Thank you very much for reading.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I will stick around for half an hour of overtime. Jason, I don't know if you can stick it out or if you need to run.
Probably